ידי נפש הרחמן משוך עבדך ארץ עונה. ידי נפש הרחמן משוך עבדך ארץ עונה. ירוץ עבדך כמו הים, ירוץ עבדך כמו הים, ישתחבר מול אדמה, כי הרב לא ידיד אותך מנוף עצוב בכל טעם. כי הרב לא ידיד אותך מנוף עצוב בכל טעם. אדוני זיו העולם נפשי חולת אהבתך. אדוני זיו העולם נפשי חולת אהבתך. אנא אלנה בפנה לה, אנא אלנה בפנה לה, בחרות לנו המזבח, אז תתעזך ותתרפא. הייתה לך שפחת עולם, הייתה לך שפחת עולם. ותחיה מורחמך וחוסנה על בן אוהבך. ותחיה מורחמך וחוסנה על בן אוהבך. כי זה כמה נקסוף נקצף, כי זה כמה נקסוף נקצף, לראות בתפארת עוזך. אנא אלי מחמד ליבי, חושנה ואל תתעלם. אנא אלי מחמד ליבי, חושנה ואל תתעלם. הגלנה ופרס חביב עלי את סוכת שלומה. הגלנה ופרס חביב עלי את סוכת שלומך. תאיר ארץ מכבודך, תאיר ארץ מכבודך. נגילה ונשמחה בך, מהר אהוב כי במועד, בכונני כי מעולם. מהר אהוב כי במועד, בכונני כי מעולם. יא נה 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 נה, יא נה 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 נה, יא נה 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 נה, יא נה נה נה, יא נה 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 נה, יא נה נה נה, יא נה נה, יא נה נה, יא נה נה נה, יא נה נה נה, יא נה נה 나
Shalom, Cantor, Amy.
Shalom. Good to see you, Rabbi.
Good to see you too. It's good to be together for Shabbos. It's good to exhale after quite a week. Just off the top, before we really get into celebrating our Shabbat, I think you'll welcome this as well, Cantor. We're going to dedicate tonight's service to the memory and of those who we lost right in Orange County at the Presbyterian Church, the person we lost and the people we lost in Buffalo as well, to this scourge of violence that we've seen. I'm not going to bring everything down, and yet I think there is an importance of taking from our joy. Every Passover, when we drink the 4 cups of wine, the cups of wine represent our joy, and we take some of our joy out, some of our wine out, as we talk about the plagues. Very much a plague right now. of gun violence, and our hearts, and really, it's not just hearts and prayers, it's not just the time for that, but our support and love for those victims of these horrible tragedies. And as I said in my message to the community, if you need to talk or want to talk, we are here as your clergy, to not to say to bring sense to it, but just to be a comfort if we can. So let's get into it. Let's celebrate the moment. Let's celebrate Shabbat as we welcome Shabbat. Psalm 95 on page 12, if you have your Lev Shalom.
Are you up for a little call and response? Lechu neranena,
Lechu neranena,
L'Adonai,
Adonai,
Nariah,
Nariah,
L'tzur Yishenu,
L'tzur Yishenu,
Nekat Mafanav,
Nikad Mafanav,
B'todah,
B'todah,
Bizmirot,
Bizmirot,
Narialo.
Arialo.
Just put my hat in front of my eyes, okay? Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Narialo. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Narialo. Ki el gadol Adonai, u'melech gadol al kol Elohim, asher biyado mechkar eretz, v'to'afot harim lo, asher lo hayam v'asahu, ve'al yadav yatzaru, bo nishtachave v'nichra, nivracha livnei Adonai oseinu. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Nariah lo. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Nariah lo. Ki hu Eloheinu, v'anachnu amarito b'tzon yado, hayom im b'kolo tishma'u. Al takshu levavchem kimriva, ki yom masa b'midbar, asher nisuni avotechem, b'chanuni gam ra'u fo'ali. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Nariah lo. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariah l'tzur Yishenu, Nekad mafanav b'todah, Bizmirot, Nariah lo. Let's do a little more call and response right here at the end.
All right, let's do it.
40 shana,
40 shana,
Akud bedor,
Akud bedor,
Va'omar,
Va'omar,
Am toye levavhem,
Am toye levavhem,
V'hem lo yad'u,
V'hem lo yad'u,
derachai,
Derachai,
Asher nishbati v'pi, im yava'un al manuchati. Shi'u l'Adonai kol ha'aretz, Shi'u l'Adonai shir chadash, Shi'u l'Adonai All right, a little bit more call and response because you're so good, Rabbi.
Okay.
ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ ירם הים ומלואו יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו אז ירננו כל עצי יער. And we're not done yet, and if you're at home, I hope you're doing this with us. Lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel b'tzedek v'amim b'emunato. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש כי נפלאות עשה הושיע לו ימינו וזרוע קודשו ותהיה אדוני ישועתו לאלה הגויים גילת צדקתו זכר חסדו ישראל ראו כל אפסי הארץ את ישועת אלוהינו ראו לאדוני כל הארץ פיצו ורננו וזמרו זמרו לאדוני בכינו בכל זמרה בחצוצרות בכל שופר יהיו לבני המלך אדוני ירם הים ומלואו תבל ויושביה נהרות ימחאו כף יחד הרים ירננו לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ לשפוט תבל בצדק בעמים במשרים ינאי ינאי יאו ינאי 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 All right. Let's do one more before we get to L'Chaduti. We'll go to Psalm 29. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד באות, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד הרים, אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, משבר אדוני את עוזי הבנות, ויקידם כמו עגל לבנון וציריון כמו בן רעמים, כל אדוני חוצב אבות אש, כל אדוני
I just have this smile on my face when I listen to you. So I hope people are smiling at home wherever they are. The Chadodi is, I think I've shared this with you, and you can just nod your head yes or no if I have or I haven't. I think it might be my favorite prayer that we read every week. Just what it symbolizes, the transition and all that. But one of the lines that gets me every time is when we go through the paragraphs, there's a line that says, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. It's talking about the relationship of God and humanity. And in that way, in that sentence, it says that humanity is the end, Sof ma'aseh, the end of creation. We're at the end, we're on the sixth day. But machshava, in the thoughts of God, in the deity, techila, it starts with us. And it's, for a long time, I grew up thinking that meant that God thinks of humanity first whenever God. No, I don't think so. I don't know that that's true. I hope not, because we've seen humanity's capacity for not thinking of God's creations. We've seen humanity's capacity, not compassion, humanity's capacity to put the creations of the world last. So I think in our minds, what should come first is not us, but the relationship with God. We're reminded in this week's parsha, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're reminded in this week's parsha that we own nothing. Every 7 years, the land should lay fallow. In Israel, we cannot plant, we cannot reap, we cannot eat the produce. And every 50 years, ownership reverts. Meaning, you don't own permanently anything. You're just renting. And if we thought of our lives as just temporary ownership, not of ownership, not that we have complete control and dominance, but that we're the stewards of it. Like God asks us to be the stewards of the land. And in creation, God is looking for a partner and says to Adam, you should be a steward for the land. So yes, we are last in creation, but we should first and foremost think of this all of creation as God's world. And we are just stewards of it. And so as we sing Lecha Dodi, let's take
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri's having trouble hearing me. I don't know if you heard that, but I wasn't talking to you, Siri, so it's fine. As we go through Lecha Dodi, try to just picture the Garden of Eden. Picture tranquility. Picture peace and calm, and our place in that calmness, our place in that creation. It's not to dominate, it's not to destroy, it's to embrace, to nurture, and to let life, to spring life anew, to let room for life to be lived. So let's do the Chadodi.
Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Nekavela Shamu Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Nekavela Likrat Shabbat Lechu V'necha Ki Mekor HaBeracha Merosh Mikedem Nesucha Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava techila סודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה He told me כי בהולך קומי אורי שתדבר בי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי You can put it down לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה You can put it down and you can wave with your hands, okay? בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמונה עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה You may wave with your hands.
No.
Or you can go downstairs and play, okay? מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון להגיד בבוקר חסדך באמונתך בלילות צדיק התמה יפרח כארז בלבנון ישגה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו אור ינופון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו אדוני מלך גאות לבש אדוני עוז יתעזר אב תיכון תבל בל תימות נכון כיסך מאז מעולם אתה נשאו נערות אדוני נשאו נערות כולם ישאו נערות דוח ים מקולות מים רבים אדירים משברי ים אדירים ניצחנה בקודש, אדוני לאורך ימים.
It's so nice to spend this time together, to be singing. What I wouldn't give, some of you may know what a kumsitz is, but I grew up in a youth group where on Saturday night we would sing songs and sit on the floor, and it would be dark in the room. We'd have candles and we'd sing all these kinds of songs. And it's just it's an amazing feeling. And so thank you, Cantor Katz, for connecting me to that. Good Shabbos, everyone. I mentioned the Jubilee earlier, and we're told in this week's Parsha to count a cycle of 7 years, and every seventh cycle, meaning every seventh cycle of 7 years, so every 49 years, it becomes a Jubilee year. So we're counting 50 years. But last week we had a different counting. Last week we hear about the Omer, the counting we do between Passover and Shavuot. Now, I've never been a big fan of the Omer. I know people who love it. I know people who love the discipline. For me, it's another kind of traditional OCD kind of thing. So I never loved it. But what's interesting, and Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points this out, is that in the commandments of counting, one of the commandments, the commandment for the Omer, is done in the plural, v'asu, and you should do these things. And the counting for the Jubilee, for the communal celebration, is done in the singular. You as a community, you should do it singularly. And I was thinking about what it means to count time. This past week, we celebrated Lag BaOmer, which is the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag being Lamed Gimel, which is 33 in numerology of Hebrew. And it's traditionally been a celebration. Traditionally, it's been a celebration, but not for everyone. Some of you may remember, some of you may know that a year ago on Lag BaOmer, there was a tragedy in Israel where there was a religious celebration for Lag BaOmer, and there was a stampede, and some people lost their lives. Among the people who lost their lives was my friend's son. My childhood friend I grew up with, his son Donnie, was studying in Israel for the year, and he lost his life. Now, I'd only met this little boy when he was a boy. I mean, he's not a little boy. He wasn't a little boy when he passed. He was 18, 19 years old. But this week, in the middle of the celebration of Lag BaOmer in Israel, was something called an Azkara, a memorial for him at his yeshiva. And my parents are actually in Israel and got to go and got to give him a big hug, and his wife. And I was thinking of how we handle these things, how we count the days, how we count time, how we march with time, and how we mark time. You know, I know people whose birthdays are, I mean, maybe you do as well, who are September 11th, right? On a day that they had, for, depending on their age, they may have been 20, 30 years old when their birthday turned into a tragedy. And it made me think of what we're carrying around during days of festives, of Jubilee, or of Lag BaOmer, and our own personal calendar. There's a communal calendar and our own personal calendar, and they're not always the same. And it just makes me realize that we never know, and this is such a cliche, I realize that, I know, I don't want to say, speak in platitudes, but we don't know what other people are carrying with them. We don't know where they're coming from or what kind of burden they have with them. But we mark time differently. And I can't tell you as a rabbi how many people have apologized to me for crying while they're in mourning, whether the person had passed away a year ago or 18 years ago. They cry and they say they have this notion that they should be further along in some process, as if grief is linear. Well, it's not. And the way we mark time might seem linear, right? The Omer and the Jubilee are 1, 2, 3, and so on. But the way we mark time in our lives is not. You may be chronologically a certain age, but I'm sure there are moments where you feel a lot younger. And, when you wake up in the morning, maybe you feel a lot older in those moments. So this marking of time that we've created becomes a way to realize how we experience the world. What are the milestones? What are the things from which we mark? The anniversaries, the birthdays, the yard sites. And what is it we're carrying forward from those days? How many days has it been since? How many years has it been? How many days or years have you been sober? However we mark time, we're marking time with all of our baggage, all of our luggage behind us. And you never know what someone is going through. You never know where they are in their marking. And so while the community goes on, and by the way, speaking of marking, we've all gotten very familiar with this idea of marking time, whether it's a 3-day or a 10-day quarantine or all these different things, time has taken on a different meaning now too. So we think of time as this infinite possession, right? I remember I was having a conversation early in my rabbinate with a president of my synagogue, and I explained to him that when my daughter wakes up, I'm up with her, I let her mom sleep, and I change her diaper, and that's holy time. And the person said, holy time, sacred or holy time over a dirty diaper? Yeah, actually it was. I'm looking at your son, Amy, and he's young now, and it reminds me of the advice, or not advice, but the observation I got when my daughter was born, that the days are really, really long, and the years are really, really short. And so as we mark time, Shabbat and these moments that we have together are a way to stop, take stock, see where we are, and then continue. And to be able to, as Ferris Bueller says, if you don't stop to look around every once in a while, you might miss something. So just a way to be mindful of our time and other people and how they mark it. We're going to do the Mourner's Kaddish, but before we do, I want to offer our condolences to Ray Glasser on the loss of his mother, Janet. The funeral will be Monday in New York. And we have a number of yard sites to commemorate in the community. Shirley Margolis and Aaron Katz, Alan Goodman and Donald Gelly, Elaine Greenberg and Yehoshua Cohen, Nancy Waba and Norman D. Kempner, Henry Victor Berman and Wallace David Cohn, Max Dosick and Seymour Greenberg, George Jacoby and Elaine Udoff, Avraham Ofri and Charna Dora Bororinsky. May all of their memories, however long it's been, whether it's been a year, 10, 20, may all of their memories be a blessing. And now I invite you to join me in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 30. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, Be'alma divrach chirutei be'yamlich malchusei, B'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chayei dechol beis Yisrael. And I'm going to do this a little different. Ba'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam umei olmaya. Yisparach v'yishtabach v'yispa'ar v'yisramam v'yisnasei. V'yisadar v'yisale v'yisalal shemei dekudesha v'richu le'ela min kol birchasa v'shirasa tushbechasa v'nechemasa de'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. And I know that Mourner's Kaddish might be a little different. The reason I did it that way also is Donnie, the boy I mentioned, his grandfather taught me how to do the Mourner's Kaddish like that. So that was a memorial for him. So Amy, who's that?
Who's this? What's your name?
George.
Aaron.
No, your name's Ari.
Whoa. Aaron's gonna. You got it. Aaron's gonna help me close out.
All right, Aaron, go. Take it away.
Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharim Malachei Elyon, or maybe not. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, קדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני, here we go. ברכוני לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם, צאתכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, קדוש ברוך הוא. שבת שלום, שבת שלום, שבת 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 שלום, שבת שלום, שבת שלום, היי, שבת 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 שלום, שבת 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 שלום, שבת 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 שלום, שבת שלום, היי, שבת שלום, שבת 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom from the crazy house.
May it be a happy, healthy, peaceful Shabbat for us and all our friends and our loved ones.